Welcome to today's workshop, How to Sell Without Selling Your Soul. My name is Joseph Lewin, and I've been in marketing and sales for over 10 years. And I've developed a system to book conversations with decision makers by creating content with them. If you don't like cold calling and you're uncomfortable just constantly pitching your products and services, this workshop is for you. I'm going to teach you the 3 mistakes I see people make when they try to implement social selling and the 3 secrets to the sell-through social system. If you like having conversations with people, but you don't like cold calling or cold pitching, you're going to love the sell-through social system. I'm going to teach you how to use LinkedIn Live to build a personal brand and grow your sales pipeline. You've got to talk to our head of strategy. That's what a CEO recently told me after we finished a call. And I had booked that call through cold outreach. After the call was done, he made introductions to a few other people that he said I needed to know. He also gave me a personal invite to an event that he was hosting where I met a chief revenue officer that I booked a discovery call with. From the cold outreach to having the conversation with the CEO, the introductions and relationships I built afterward, it all felt so easy. And I've been having that same experience over and over and over again. But it hasn't always been this way. I spent over 10 years working hard manual labor jobs, including 5 years sweeping chimneys. And let's just say I wasn't dancing on rooftops or singing at the end of every day. This work was brutal and hard on my body, and I wanted out. So in 2016, I started a business creating social content for small businesses. In 2017, I went all in on my business and I made a meager $25,000 in 2017. I struggled to land clients, I couldn't get in front of decision makers, and my dream of becoming an entrepreneur quickly turned into a nightmare. Without new business coming in, my fledgling business was doomed. I did what no entrepreneur wants to do. I put my tail between my legs and I went and got a real job. My turning point came when I was working as a content marketer. I realized that I could get the value of content upfront by creating content with people I wanted to know. It wasn't about creating content and hoping that people would come to me. I was going to people and asking them to create content with me and building relationships with them that led to business conversations. I started the Strategic Marketer podcast after I realized how well this method worked for building relationships. I expanded my network. I actually ended up interviewing my future boss on the show. Not long after he came on, he offered me a job. I interviewed industry influencers and best-selling authors. Since then, I've been teaching marketers and sales reps at $30 million to $100 million a year organizations how to leverage content to start conversations with their ideal customers. I've run the system in a sales role myself, and I also use this to build relationships with my ideal customers for Sell-Through Social. Through this workshop, I'm going to teach you an absolute cheat code for starting conversations with decision makers, and I'm going to teach you how to effectively sell through social. I'm going to teach you how to start conversations with the people you want to know by inviting them to join you for a LinkedIn Live or a YouTube live stream. I'm going to show you how to get a heck yes to your outreach. I'm going to show you a trick for getting out of the friend zone as a consultant. And I'm going to show you how to fill your sales pipeline without making a single cold call or writing a blog post. One of my students, David, closed a $500,000 deal from his first LinkedIn Live. And that was after this prospect had been ghosting him for months. He reached out, asked him to come on a LinkedIn Live, and closed a $500,000 deal with that customer. Now, you probably tried a bunch of ways to grow your business without success. Building a great product or service and hoping people would buy from you, cold calling people on their cell phones, networking or leads groups, doing some kind of inbound marketing, hoping people would come to you. So SEO, blog writing, YouTube, creating social content or personal brand content on LinkedIn, and assuming that people will come to you when they're ready. But if you're like most people, those methods might have worked for you here and there, but they're very inconsistent. Today, that all changes. I'm about to share with you the 3 big mistakes to avoid when social selling and the 3 secrets to the sell-through social system that will help you land 5 conversations with decision makers in your first 30 days of implementing the system. If you're ready to kick sales anxiety to the curb, let's get going. First, it's important that you know I've spent hundreds of hours implementing this system. This isn't some ivory tower theory. I'm booking conversations with decision makers regularly with just 2 to 3 hours of business development a week, and I'm doing it without making a single cold call. Let's talk about the 3 mistakes to avoid when selling through social. Mistake number 1, pitch slapping. Now, there's a lot of ways to pitch slap people. You could call them on their cell phone, bonus points for calling them during dinner. You can in-mail people and pitch them your products. You could track somebody down at an event and try to corner them and give them your elevator pitch. But whatever way you go about it, nobody wants to be pitch slapped. Even if you could occasionally get somebody to buy from you by pitch slapping them, it's terrible for your reputation. Mistake number 2, waiting for the phone to ring. Now, this comes in many forms. It's build it and they'll come. This is thinking that your product or service is going to be enough for people to ring you up and have your phone ringing off the hook. It could be a sales rep waiting for leads to come in or waiting for the phone to ring. Or it could be taking a approach to inbound where you're creating a bunch of content and expecting people to just naturally reach out to you when they're ready to buy. I hate to break it to you, but this is a huge mistake. People aren't just going to call you up out of the blue. Mistake number 3, inconsistent activity. Now, I call this the roller coaster of inactivity. This is when a sales rep or a business owner needs work. They're desperate to grow their pipeline, so their activity goes out the roof, and then things get busy and the activity drops down into the toilet. This is not a way to grow consistent pipeline. If you do this, you're always going to be running into feast or famine. You need to have consistent activity if you want to have consistent business coming in. Otherwise, you're always going to be chasing a lackluster pipeline. These 3 mistakes will crush your growth potential. But the good news is there is another way. Introducing the sell-through social system. There are 3 secrets to selling through social. Secret number 1, create content with the people you want to know. Secret number 2, have a plan to stay consistent. And secret number 3, don't go it alone. Secret number 1, create content with people you want to know. I'm going to share 1 big idea, 3 types of content you need to create, and how to get a heck yes to your outreach. If you take away 1 thing from today, let it be this big idea. In the next 3 slides, I'm going to share the number 1 reason why you're struggling to connect with your ideal customers and why they aren't buying from you. The market doesn't care. The market doesn't care about you. Your ideal customers don't care about you. They don't care about your positioning. They don't care about your why. They don't care about your services. They don't care about your point of view. They don't care about your unique way of doing business. And they certainly don't care about your problems. Your ideal customers care about themselves. They care about their personal hopes, dreams, goals, and desires. They care about their business. They care about their problems, their pain points, their business goals, and their reputation. And because of that, your content and your services must focus on your ideal customers. Make your content about them. Focus on their pain points and their problems, and show them how your service will help them reach their desired outcome. And you can do that with these 3 types of content that you need to win business by making it about them. The first type of content that you need to create is creating content with your ideal customers. Then you need to create content for your ideal customers. And finally, you need to create content that makes it easier to buy. So what do I mean by creating content with your ideal customers? Here's the thing. Your ideal customers want a platform to share their ideas, and you can give it to them by hosting them on a LinkedIn Live or a YouTube live stream. You could interview them for an article or a book that you're writing. There's lots of different methods that you can use, but whatever direction you choose to go, You want to choose a topic that they are interested in sharing about that also relates to what you do. Now, I'm partial to LinkedIn Live because you're not having to make as big of a commitment up front. You can change directions after a couple times of doing it if you decide there's a different direction you need to go. You don't have to do any post-production when the show is done, and you get automatic distribution on the LinkedIn platform. When you create content with your ideal customers, you're front-loading the value. So traditionally, when you're creating content for marketing, you create it and you hope that your ideal customers will consume it and reach out when they're ready to buy. But when you take this approach where you're targeting exactly who you want to build a relationship with, you get that conversation up front. And then if you end up having people come in by viewing that content in the future, that's gravy. But you've already gotten the most valuable thing that you can get, a conversation with exactly the person you wanted to talk to in the first place. If you want to build your sales pipeline, in other words, you want to have customers that are ready to buy from you when you're ready to do the work, or you're in a place where you need to validate your ideas, this is the most important kind of content you can create. I've used this method for the strategic marketer. I also used it as the host of Outbound while I was in a sales role. I interviewed my ideal customers, potential partners, and industry influencers. I also hosted LinkedIn Lives with my ideal customers. Now, please, 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 whatever you do, don't use this as a veiled sales pitch. Creating content with your ideal customers is an amazing way to build business relationships. It's networking at scale. But just like if you go to an in-person event or networking event, not every person that could be a potential customer is going to be ready to buy right now. So you don't want to just pitch everybody after your show. Let the conversation direct your pitch. If you are talking with somebody after the show's done and it's clear they have the problem you solve, well, then you could go ahead and ask them if they want to have a further conversation. But a lot of people won't be ready to buy right now. And don't ruin the relationship and the future referrals or the potential business down the road by being too aggressive after the show is done. This is a start of a long-term business relationship with your guests. Don't overdo it. You also want to create content for your ideal customers. This is how you start building an audience and sharing ultimately your own expertise. Your customers have a problem that they want to solve. They have a job to do. And if you can make that easier and you can help them understand how to overcome the daily challenges that they're facing, they're going to come back to you over and over and over again. And when they're ready to buy, you will be top of mind. You want to create content that helps you join into a larger conversation that your customers are having and that's going on in the industry. This also includes content that helps your ideal customers understand the problem that you solve better, and it gives you the opportunity to reframe that problem so when they think about it, they're thinking about approaching that problem the same way that you do. That way, when you do present your solution to them, they're already looking at the problem from your point of view. One great way to do this is by inviting industry experts and influencers to join you for a LinkedIn Live show or a podcast or something like that. So I interviewed Matt Dixon, the author of The Challenger Sale. He's also a contributor to the Harvard Business Review, and he was really excited to come on the show because part of his business model is sharing thought leadership content. And so you'd be surprised at how many industry experts, influencers, and authors are willing to come on your show, even when you're just getting started. So just by having somebody like this on your show, you gain authority and are perceived as an expert in the industry. And if you do it over and over and over again, people are going to see you as being an industry authority. If you're not a video creator and you haven't written a lot of thought leadership content, I recommend starting with the screen share method. It's really straightforward. All you have to do is find an article or some industry research, highlight a couple key points, share your screen talking through those points, and then summarize why that information is relevant to your ideal customers or your audience. Then you simply upload that and post it on LinkedIn. As you continue to create that kind of content, you're going to start to develop a much more clear point of view and ultimately thought leadership content. Now, speaking of thought leadership content, when most people talk about building a personal brand, they're talking about thought leadership. Thought leadership content is when you're sharing your unique point of view. Now, thought leadership content is very difficult to create. Unless you're used to writing a lot or creating thought leadership content already, this takes a lot of practice and a lot of time. I definitely recommend getting into this type of personal brand building in the long run, but I would definitely start with creating content with your ideal customers, then moving into more of that content for customers, and then moving into thought leadership content. As you have more practice, you get the reps under your belt, and you can share a much more clear point of view. If you haven't already created those other kinds of content first and validated that you're on the right track, you can actually end up creating thought leadership content that gets a lot of attention, but ends up bringing in the wrong type of people and doesn't actually drive business in the long run. So you want to really make sure that the content you're creating is helping you start conversations with the right people, and then lean into thought leadership that helps you do that more effectively. And finally, you want to create content that makes it easier to buy. This type of content is imperative, but you want to be careful not to create it too early in the process. Now, you might want to have a simple landing page or a simple sales deck or something like that, but you really want to ensure that you've validated who your ideal customers are, the pain points and problems that they're willing to fork over cash to solve, and that you've identified the right messaging and solution to help them buy from you more easily. If you invest in this kind of content too soon, you can end up creating a lot of content around a solution that you're ultimately going to end up needing to change. I've made this mistake before. I've worked for companies that have made this mistake before, and I've watched clients do it as well. You want to be really careful not to overcreate solution-specific content before you've really validated that you're reaching the right person with the right pain points and problems, and that your solution is really on point. Overcreating content that makes it easy to buy will cost you a ton of money in the long run if you haven't really done the hard work of validation first. We'll talk a little bit more about validation a little bit further down in the workshop. So, content that makes it easier to buy are things like sales decks, landing pages, templates, workshops, calculators, and social content that walk people through the information they're going to need to buy from you. Now, this is where you really want to be careful not to fall back into the build it and they'll come trap. It's really vital that you use the first two types of content to validate your ideas before creating this type of content. If you're not careful, you can create tone-deaf, self-serving content that turns buyers off rather than getting them to take the next step. Let's talk about how to make your outreach about them. We're going to talk about how to get your prospects to say heck yes to your outreach. Your ideal customers love to talk about themselves, their ideas, and share their expertise. Be the catalyst that gives them a platform to share their perspective, and they will love you for it. Your prospects don't want to be pitched your products and services unless they're in the market to buy right now, which is a tiny fraction of the market. Why send a tone-deaf sales pitch that's going to get very little response when you can get somebody to say absolutely 100% or heck yes to your outreach? The difference is that when this person's ready to buy, they're going to be open to hearing your pitch. Whereas if you pitch them now, they're not going to want to have anything to do with you down the road. It's not rocket science. You find a topic that they're interested in talking about. You can do some research and personalization to make it more effective. Then you simply ask them to join you for a LinkedIn Live, a YouTube live stream, or to create some other kind of content with you. Now, if you take the time to personalize your outreach, it will get better results. But it's still a numbers game. It's just that the numbers are much better when you make it about them. In other words, you have to find the right balance between personalization to get people to say yes more effectively, but also realizing that you're going to have to reach out to a bunch of people. Now, if you spend an hour and a half on your outreach when you could have spent 5 minutes and gotten the same result, that's not a very effective use of your time. So you got to find the right balance to get people on the show, but also get enough outreach out there to keep people consistently coming on your show. Now, with completely cold outreach, I get somewhere between 15 and 20% of people saying that they'll come on the show, and about half of those end up actually booking a time and recording with me. And that's with completely cold outreach. Now, if there's warm outreach, meaning that if they've liked a post of mine on LinkedIn, or I've liked a post of theirs, or they liked a clip from a previous show, it's more like 30 to 50% of those people end up booking on a show with me when I reach out. Now, if I've had an interaction with somebody on LinkedIn, like they've commented on my post, I've commented back, or I comment on their post and they comment back, around 70% of those people end up actually coming on a show with me. So that's where spending a few minutes a day commenting on posts that are relevant to your industry is going to make your outreach way more effective. Outreach gets a bad rap, especially cold outreach, but it doesn't have to be a dirty word. When you're a catalyst for your ideal customers and prospects' ideas, they'll be happy you reached out to them. No more slimy sales pitches or obnoxious cold calls. And no more sales performance anxiety for you. Now, before we move on to secret number 2 about creating a plan for consistent action, I want to share with you about how you can leverage content to continue conversations and the secret tactic for getting out of the friend zone as a consultant. Now, when you have someone in your pipeline or you have somebody that might want to do business with you down the road, you want to have a valid reason to reach out so that you never have to say just following up again. To do that, you want to have nurturing content. Now, this could be some of that content you've already been creating yourself, but it could also be content you're curating from other people. So as you're reading content or you're creating content, if you think of somebody that you've been having conversations with, but you haven't heard from them a while, or you haven't had a good reason to ping them so that you stay top of mind, you can send them either something that you've created that's relevant to them, or if you've read an article that you think will be applicable to them, you can send them a message and say, hey, I saw your post about XYZ earlier this week. I thought this article would be right up your alley. Or, hey, I'm having so-and-so on a live stream next week. I think this is a really interesting topic that you'll enjoy, so I wanted to send you an invite. You want to just be thinking of ways that you can stay top of mind while still adding value and not just pestering people with, hey, are you ready to buy from me now? That way, when they are ready to buy, you can either reach out effectively and they'll listen because you're not just reaching out when you're ready to pitch, or they'll come to you because you're top of mind. Now, qualifying content, when done right, is absolutely amazing. This is the way to get out of the friend zone as a consultant. So if you've gotten stuck in this trap where you're constantly giving away all of your information for free and people are just kind of mooching off of you and not moving forward, you can create a piece of content that helps to qualify them. It's either going to show you that they're not actually a viable prospect for you so that you can stop spending time chasing your tail, or it's going to make it easy for you to ask them for that next step conversation. Now, this is similar to the content that makes it easier to buy from you. You want to be really careful not to create this too early on in the process, because content that qualifies prospects typically takes a lot of time and effort to build out. So you really want to do this if you either aren't getting people to move forward at all, or you're getting so many people to reach out to you that you need to start pre-qualifying them so that you're not wasting your time with a bunch of tire kickers. So qualifying content highlights the gap between where your prospect is now and where they want to be. What is that ideal state? What do they desire? And how is the pain point or problem that you solve keeping them from getting there? This type of content is going to widen that gap so that they recognize how big of an issue it is, and it makes it easy for you to ask for that next step conversation. This is the kind of content that your prospect is going to have to take action on. So if the pain point or problem is something that's really serious, they're going to spend 20 minutes filling out your questionnaire or an hour or two filling out the template. And if they're not willing to take that time, the problem is most likely not big enough for them to solve. But if they do take the time, you can reach back out and say, hey, I'd love to review that template with you. Or did you have any questions about filling that out? And then once you get the chance to review it with them, you walk through, give them some pointers, and then you say, hey, would you like any help with that? And if they say yes, now you're moving into a discovery conversation and talking about how you can help them solve these problems. And if they say no, again, now you've qualified them out that this is not a viable opportunity. When done right, I absolutely love qualifying content. It's an amazing way to get out of the friend zone, move to that next step conversation, or stop chasing those dead end prospects. Now we're going to talk about secret number 2 of the sell through social system. You have to have a plan to stay consistent. You can fly by the seat of your pants for a month or two, but planning is paramount for consistent growth. You don't want to ride that roller coaster of inconsistent action where it's feast or famine and your pipeline dries up by the time you need the work. Instead, let's create a plan to stay consistent. Taking consistent action is obvious. Why call it a secret? Everybody knows that you need to be consistent on social media or doing biz dev activities in order to be successful. The secret is that almost no one actually acts on this knowledge. There are many reasons people don't take action. The reasons are also known as excuses. Don't be one of those people. Be different and do what you say you'll do. Imperfect action beats consistent procrastination. You don't need to overthink your content. It's really not going to be that great at first, so it's better just start taking action as quickly as possible. Don't get too caught up in list building and planning before you take action. The most important thing you can do as soon as you're done with this workshop is to write a post or reach out to somebody to schedule them on a LinkedIn Live. You've got to take that first step of action and recognize that it's going to be imperfect, and that's okay. It's better to just get moving as quickly as possible. You really need to have a list of biz dev activities that you commit to weekly, even if you don't get them all done perfectly all the time. It's that consistency week after week after week that's going to ultimately lead to new business. Now, you do want to just take action. You want to get moving. That's super important. But to take the right actions consistently, you need a plan. Now, here's some common pitfalls to avoid when you start making a plan for consistent action. Some of the planning pitfalls are too much planning too early in the process, committing to a plan without validating your hypotheses, over-planning from a proclivity to procrastinate, holding to unrealistic goals without data to back it, anemic list building, and constantly switching plans. I have made the mistake of over-planning and over-validating, and I've watched businesses I've worked for and clients do the same. Don't over-plan without validation. I want to go back for a second to the business I started in 2016. The final nail in the coffin of that business was that I spent 3 months creating a course and a membership website for this framework that I created called the Brand Compass. It was to solve a problem that I knew clients had, but I hadn't validated that they would actually pay me for it or that there was enough demand to solve that problem. Now, the problem is real. I know that businesses have this problem, and if they'd solve it, it would fix a lot of issues that they have in their business. But I didn't do the hard work of validating the right people, the right pain point or problem that they would fork over cash for, and I didn't validate my solution in stages to prove that people would actually pay for it before I built the whole thing out. I worked my butt off for 3 months, and I made a whopping $300 for the course. And this was really the beginning of the end for my business. I see this mistake all the time with solopreneurs, consultants, small business owners, and sales reps can even make this mistake too. Even though you don't necessarily have input into the product itself, the messaging that you use, if you're not careful to validate the people you're going after and the messaging, you can be just 5 or 10 degrees off. And by the time you run after that month after month after month without really validating it, you can be way off course. So how do you avoid being me back in 2018 creating that course? Don't offer a cure where there is no pain. You can't create a realistic long-term plan until you've developed hypotheses in several areas and validated them through conversations. You need just the right amount of planning, then you need to take action so that you can either pivot or move forward. To create a plan to stay consistent, you need a validated hypothesis in these 3 areas. You need to know who your ideal customers are. You need to really understand their pain points and problems, and make sure that you find a pain point or problem that they're actually willing to fork cash over. When they go, hey, if you have a way to solve this problem, I will pay you for it. You've found the right pain point or problem. And you want to ensure that it's not just one client that's willing to pay you for that, but it's something that comes up over and over and over again. Then you need to validate that the solution that you've created for that problem is the right one that people understand easily and move forward on. And then finally, you want to really understand what it is that your ideal customers are willing to talk about so that when you do your outreach, you get people to say yes to coming on your show. Here's what your first 90-day plan should look like. Use your current knowledge to develop a hypothesis in the 4 areas above. Use Sales Navigator or your existing network to create a list of 20 to 30 people who you want to know. You want to reach out to that list and start asking people to join you for a LinkedIn Live. And then you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to create another list, you're going to do outreach, and you're going to have those people on your show. And then you use the time before and after the show to have a conversation with them to validate your ideas. When the show's done, if you ask your guests if they'd be open to sharing some feedback with you or let them know that you're doing some industry research and you have a few questions, most people will be willing to share information with you, especially after you've built the rapport of them coming on your show. You want to use what you learned from those initial conversations to either double down on your hypotheses or create a new hypothesis in one of the three areas. Here's what to plan next after that first 90 days. If you feel good about the hypothesis that you've made, you want to expand the list in your validated ideal customer profile. You want to create a show premise that fits the ideal customers that you validated and further develop the show format. This is where you really double down on the topic and the way that you're going about doing the show. Now's the time to create some of that basic content that makes it easier to buy. You're going to want to have some kind of sales deck, some deeper landing pages, and you're going to want to fill out your profile so that as more of these ideal customers come, they're going to get the right message to move them to the next step with you. It's also helpful to create a rough sales forecast. So if you know, hey, I've got to reach out to 10 people to get one person on the show, and then it takes 5 people on my show to close one deal, that gives you a really good idea of how many people you need to reach out to on a regular basis and how often you should have your show to reach your sales goals. It's important to remember that validating your ideal customer profile, your service offerings, and your positioning are long-term endeavors. Plan in stages of validation, but make sure that you have enough of a plan so that you do the right next action week after week after week. And now for the final secret of the Sell Through Social system. Don't go it alone. Unless you're a psychopath, you're going to need community and accountability to execute your plan with consistent action. Here's the number one reason I've seen people fail to implement this proven process. They try to go it alone. If you try to go it alone, here's your lonely future. You get overwhelmed putting out fires and put off business development until the need for new business is so great that it becomes a crisis. You let a bad biz dev experience go to your head, then to your heart, and you lose momentum. You miss a few weeks of biz dev activity and lose your drive and motivation to keep on going when the going gets tough. You procrastinate because you don't know what next action to take and your pipeline stalls out and drives up. Or you've got business coming in, so you get just a little bit lazy and your new biz dev slows down to a trickle. And when you need that new customer to come in, you don't have anything in your pipeline and it becomes a crisis. Few full-time top sales reps perform well without accountability. What makes you think you'll be able to keep momentum all on your own? Personally, I need a partner, a coach, a mentor, or a mastermind to keep going when the going gets tough. And the going will always get tough at some point. Now, you might not love the word accountability. As an entrepreneur or a sales rep, a lot of us like our independence and we don't want somebody else breathing down our neck and telling us what to do. But I love this quote from John Delemy. Accountability separates the wishers in life from the action takers that care enough about their future to account for their daily actions. If you want to grow pipeline and new business, you've got to take accountability for those daily actions that need to get done week in and week out. So what does accountability look like in action? It's having a weekly plan that you commit to accomplish. It's having a weekly meeting with somebody else who's going to keep you on track for your goals. Here's an example agenda for that accountability meeting. First, you start with accountability. Did you do what you said you'd do? What got in your way? What are you going to change this week to make it easier for you to stay on track? Then having a quick tactical training, then stories from the trenches, making commitments for the following week, and if there's extra time, knocking out those high priority tasks. I've seen this agenda work wonders for helping clients stay consistent on their biz dev activities so that their pipeline stays full. Whatever you decide to do, don't go it alone. Find a friend, a colleague, or a mentor to hold you accountable, or join a mastermind. Now, the Sell Through Social system, it isn't magic, but when you mix it with momentum, it sure feels like it. Now you have the mindset and the knowledge. The rest is up to you. The only thing left now is to get going, and you have 3 options in front of you. Path number 1, do nothing with what you learned today. If you're happy with where you're at, you're happy with the amount of business that you have coming in, no reason to take action on what you learned today. But if you want to get new business, doing nothing isn't going to get you there. So that brings us to path number 2. If you're extremely self-motivated or you're a seasoned marketer, you really might be able to take the information from today and have most of what you need to get going. But if you want to go faster or you don't want to go it alone, path number 3 is to leverage my experience and let me help you dial in your biz dev plan and provide accountability so you can win big. Introducing the Sell Through Social system. The only way to succeed at growing a business is to close deals. The best way to close deals is by taking the right actions consistently. Without accountability, will you be consistent? Here's how the mastermind works. You'll get my exact end-to-end process for starting conversations with decision makers by creating content with them. I'll teach you how to build your lists, how to do your outreach, and how to run your LinkedIn Live. You'll learn how to create content that builds credibility and drives deals, not just impressions, website visits, or brand awareness. You'll get a plan that gives you the exact right next steps you need to take. And most importantly, weekly accountability meetings with a group of your peers who will help to keep you on track so you take the right next action week after week after week. With the Sell Through Social Mastermind, there's no more excuses or procrastination. You'll stay on track with a team of your peers cheering you on to keep you moving forward when things get tough. Based on everything you've heard so far, you're probably wondering how much you need to invest. I'm offering you knowledge and accountability for just $297 a month. You're going to get the trainings and accountability to help you close deals. It's month to month with no contract. What if $297 a month could change everything? There are a couple other ways to work together. So we have the mastermind for $297 a month with no contract. But if you're not quite ready to dive into the mastermind, but you really want to understand the end-to-end process of the Sell Through Social system, you want to understand the exact end-to-end process for doing the outreach, building your lists, running LinkedIn Lives, and selling through social. With a one-time payment of $197, you can get access to learn the Sell Through Social system. I'll give you access to the end-to-end process so that you can learn step-by-step how to do everything you need to start conversations with decision makers by creating content with them. Now, for some of my clients, they really don't want to go it alone. So starting at $2,500 a month, I'll create a customized plan with you, I'll help you build out your lists, and I'll help you get through all the pieces and pitfalls that I see people make, and I'll do it alongside you. This is a 90-day plan where I'll help implement the system and teach you everything you need to know to keep rolling. So after the 90 days, if you want to do it on your own, I'll hand it off to you. Or if you want my help, we can continue walking together. You'll find more information about all these services on this page or at sellthroughsocial.com. I want to leave you with this quote from Bob Proctor. The biggest gap in your life is between what you know and what you do. Now you know what to do. The rest is up to you. I hope that after taking this workshop, you're inspired to take action on what you've learned and go out there and build some amazing relationships that turn into long-term business for you. Thanks so much for taking time to join me for the workshop. Follow me on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and definitely reach out and let me know what you've thought of this workshop. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Sell Through Social Mastermind.